Hello and welcome to the special telecast Nasscom at 25 yesterday, today and tomorrow. This is of course a two-part series, and in the last week we looked back at the 25 years of Nasscom and how the entire technology landscape changed over 25 years, how the industry morphed from being just a $10 million industry to a $120 billion in just a span of 20 or 25 years. But what's the road ahead for the IT industry? What are the kind of breakthroughs that we need to be watching out for? And more importantly, what's the kind of size and scale that this industry can potentially get to in the next couple of decades? We've got the same panel joining us to discuss that as well. We've got Mr. Ashank Desai, Mr. Harish Mehta, Mr. Narayana Murthy, Mr. Saurabh Srivastava, and Mr. K.V. Ramani. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for staying on for this leg of the discussion as well. Let's talk about the next 25 years of the industry. Mr. Murthy, what's your sense? How much of a transformation are we going to see in the landscape of the IT industry over the next 25 years?
No, it's not always easy to predict. First of all, as the famous US basketball player said, predict about the future, but particularly so when it's a question of technology. Therefore, I don't want to go into 25 years, but I can say what is it that's likely to happen at least by 2020, 2025. I think first of all, Internet of Things is going to play a huge role. Given that you're already seeing driverless cars by Google, you know, Elon Musk's car is really, I don't know if you've seen it, it's just, you sit in the car, there's just a dashboard, it's all about software, and you know, in the morning, just from his factory or his office, they can raise the height of the chassis by 6 inches without doing anything, just from the factory. So Internet of Things will play a very important role. Second, I think big data and analytics will provide more and more opportunity for insights, because those insights will be very, very important for company A to distinguish itself vis-a-vis company B. Third, thanks to the emergence of mobile computing, thanks to the reducing prices of data communications, bandwidth, thanks to the reduction in the size of all these equipment, I believe that we'll get to ubiquitous computing. In other words, any day, anywhere, anytime computing. Therefore, the blur between the office and personal spheres will become even more emphasized. So there will be a lot of opportunity for developing applications which have universality of user interface. In other words, it will go on to any of the devices. So I think these three are likely to play a major role.
But Mr. Srivastava, would you agree that Internet of Things, smart grids, is this where a lot of investments are going to be going in the next decade or so?
Oh, absolutely. I would just add a couple of things to what Narayana Murthy was saying. You know, one is that this business of being in services, and very often when I'm speaking at events, people say, no, but your industry just did services, where are the products? You know, the advantage we have is when you're in services, you're very close to your customer. As a product, very often other people take it to the customer. So we always know what is it that they need, what will they need tomorrow. They tell us because they depend on us. That's a huge input to us. What is happening now, as increasingly you get more and more into IP-driven solutions, differentiation that Narayana Murthy was talking about, you're getting a whole breed of Indian entrepreneurs today that are actually not only getting to the same level as things were, let's say, in the US and other places. Because remember, on products, when people say that, outside of the US, outside of SAP, can you think of any other country where you have great product companies? It's because the US had a big market. What's happening in India, which is a very interesting thing, that we have a big market, but it's not as rich. And what is happening today with technology becoming ubiquitous is that you have a lot of solutions for which there is a big market, but they are different. So if you look at, for example, affordable healthcare, if you look at affordable medical devices, if you look at how education should be really, how you should handle distribution of that, if you look at the hub and spoke model of using IT intelligently for healthcare in remote areas, you look at all those areas, massive markets, solutions, all of this are driven by IT. And I will tell you, as my experience with the angel investing in Angel Network is 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 80% of people who came to us with a plan had to do with IT services or BPO. Today, nobody comes with that. 90% of them are coming with very innovative ideas, products, solutions. They are leveraging the needs of the market here.
Sure, but Mr. Mehta, with automation, artificial intelligence, all of this will have a bigger say in things going forward. We will look at increasingly non-linear business models, and what that could potentially do is drastically cut down the pace of hiring. And that's been one of the key, key success stories of the Indian IT industry, that it's been able to give employment to so many people. Do you see that metric changing? Do you see, or do you think the industry will continue to grow at the same pace, and as a result, needing that much of talent going forward as well?
So one is that if you look at the services business, services industry will continue to grow. It may not take in the same proportion the people as. But if you look at it from a different perspective, that there was an article a few years back saying software is eating the world. If you look at the top 5 companies in the US, 3 companies are from the software side. If you look at any bricks and mortar company, software is eating into every area. Today, India has 3.5 million software professionals. We will have the largest software population in the world very soon. So we have a golden opportunity to get into the IP-driven businesses, which the software will drive. And those entrepreneurs, rural entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, will create millions of jobs, which also will add to the pool of job creation. Yes, there is one major issue there, which I would say is, well, on one side, I'm super excited about the future. I'm also terrified by the taxation raj that is sort of strangulating the entrepreneur. There are more than 21 plus taxes around an entrepreneur, startup entrepreneur. So we have to find a way to island these entrepreneurs so they can focus on innovation and continue to build products and services.
Sandeep, I think it's very important for people to realize that by enhancing the per capita revenue productivity using automation, you are not reducing the possibility of job creation, because the disposable income of these people will rise. And when the disposable income rises, you will create opportunities for their spending in secondary and tertiary sectors. Therefore, overall the country will benefit, overall the world will benefit, and therefore improving the per capita revenue productivity through the power of automation is a good thing. That is very important.
I think I would just add one thing to that.
Cut on this whole thing. See, I'll tell you a good example. You see, in 2008, we did an analysis of what we want to be in 2020, and we have our numbers there reaching to 300 billion and so on. But what was significant is that in 2008, 60% of business that we were doing was not existing in 1996. So we did that study for 12 years, which means industry had transformed itself flexibly to meet the new challenges. So that's fact number one, which is what Mr. Murthy and Harish and all talked. Technology will come, technology will change, but industry is smart enough to adapt
and re-engineer
to get new opportunities. You see, business process management was not there. Design as a big item today, design and R&D work, that was not existing. Infrastructure services were not existing. All that came because of these changes. That is point one. Point two is, it is not only about what, it is also about how the IT will be used, which is what indirectly Mr. Narayana Murthy, I'll explore that. See, our business today all these years is business to business. You see, I as a company, all of us as a company work with the business as a customer. But IT is changing, whether it is internet, whether it is SMAC as you call it, is changing the business of IT into not only B to B, it is changing from B to C or C to B or C to C. So, the point I am saying is the nature of how the business is done is changing, and all these are opportunities. So, that is why we say we will be $300 billion, where including e-commerce, and because all is going to be IT driven thing.
Murthy talked about the growth in terms of services, which is going to be foundation to Indian IT industry, because the growth of services sector, as Ashank also said, is kind of morphing itself to the emerging technologies and so on. So, for example, when people talked about Y2K, and after Y2K what happens? Companies scaled up for Y2K, and after Y2K they didn't scale down. They caught on to some other business and the business grew. Correct. So, after Y2K companies didn't kind of shut down the shop. So, something else happened, engineering services happened, BPO happened, KPO happened, companies diversified, morphed themselves in services area. So, that I think is going to grow by its own internal momentum, irrespective of whichever technologies emerge. So, that is one paradigm. The second paradigm I would like to say, where I have a little possibly different view from my friends in here, is that I am a strong believer in products and technologies which are innovative. And today I see that the newer generation of entrepreneurs in IT who are younger, who are more energetic, more aggressive, have higher risk-taking abilities, and they are more innovative in their products.
And have more access to capital.
More access to capital. And I believe those entrepreneurs who are coming in, I believe that smaller startups in India would happen like auto garages, in my view, a personal view, and it's not a Nasscom view, may be different from others. So I believe that smaller startups, IP-driven companies will emerge, like you have auto service garages around the country, thousands of them. And I believe it will lead towards more products, more innovative services offered based on those products, which are based on mobile or laptop or whatever kind of devices, which will lead to, like, current Android platform or Apple platform or any other platform that you can talk about, which I think will jump in the next 10 years. So if you see that growth coming in, will be on top of the services growth, I think this industry would take another step forward. And considering these people are going to be the next generation drivers of their late 20s and early 30s today, and the industry will jump up beyond. And now it's not a Nasscom view, I will say a personal view, is that by 2025, I would say this industry by 2025 should be $500 billion, driven by at least 100 billion of product revenues.
But is that a natural evolution, Mr. Murthy?
So I just want to add here that the $100 billion we talked about, and we are still talking about the 300 million Indians who are English speaking.
Correct.
We still have 700 million people who are non-English speaking. So when you have Indian language based products and services coming out, and the domestic market itself is a $100 billion opportunity.
Let me just get closing comments from all our panelists. Mr. Murthy, we've also been talking a lot about companies going local, as companies go global. You were one of the first few pioneers to say that we need to hire more locally, the heart of, this whole protectionism debate as well. You said that, Indian companies should hire more locally. Do you see that trend getting more prominent in the next few years?
Certainly, it has already started happening, thanks to various forces. And that trend will accelerate further because it is inevitable. Our responsibility at this stage is not to India. Let's be very, very clear. Our responsibility is to every market where we operate. We have to create good job opportunities for youngsters in the US, in India, in Canada, in UK, in Australia, Japan, China, you name it. That's our responsibility. We have now graduated to that level. Therefore, I cannot think of any corporate leader in our industry who says, my responsibility is to create jobs only in India. And I think I have not come across a single corporate leader in our industry who has said that I will restrict to India. Everybody is trying their best to create more and more job opportunities for youngsters in every one of the countries that they operate in.
But Mr. Srivastava, going forward, do you think countries will also get far more protectionist than they already are? Is that very visible to you?
Well, in some areas where they can be protectionist, which is in the services area with more movement of people, you see signs of that. But you know where we are headed, this protectionism is going to be very hard to sustain. And to my view, in the way that we are operating as companies and as an industry, as Narayana Murthy just said, we are operating as global citizens abroad. So in many ways, we will not be just one Indian company, but we're companies in different locations. So that protectionism in some ways is something that we would glean over. The second part, which is to me the reverse, is I think we ourselves are going to become such a big market for people to be in that we will not be seen as just companies here who are looking to grab their market. They will need our markets. And that itself will fix it. And many of the things that Ramani was talking about the future, is happening today. I mean, Harish and I, through our Angel Network, we are seeing companies that are doing phenomenal things. I mean, taking a mobile phone, which now has a 15-megapixel camera, and a laptop, they're in effect creating a machine that can judge the quality of your eye, which would otherwise have cost $50,000 to get, to look at cataract. They're doing that for diabetes. So, to me, it will move in directions that we don't know. When we were 50 million, we said we'll be a billion, but we didn't know how. We got there. When we were 3 billion, we said we'll be 50 billion in 10 years. We got there. Like Ashank said, doing different things. When we get now to 250 billion, we will, in different ways. So I personally do not think this whole area of protectionism at any level will be sustainable where we are going. We were protectionist. We couldn't sustain it in India. And when we dropped it, it worked very well for us. And I think that's what's going to happen as we go forward.
$250 billion by when, Mr. Ramani? What's your sense?
2025, $500 billion is my dream.
2025.
Yeah, 500 in 10 years from now, my personal view, not an Nasscom view. 2025, $500 billion, I would love to see it in my lifetime.
And out of that $100 billion you're saying will come from
$100 billion in products, meaning products in a classic, not just the enterprise products, but everyday products that you use today, like WhatsApp or what you have, medical devices. You're able to scan. You're able to take your own ECG in your mobile phone, sending it to your doctor, get an opinion, keeping a medical records, keeping accounts, personal accounts of your travel, everything that can happen to an individual.
Sure.
So if you see that kind of a product emerging and shooting out into the global marketplace from India, I would say that easily $100 billion from that space, and the traditional business will go to 400 or 2025. I would like to see that happen.
I'm sure you'll say you'll agree with that, but I'm sure you're going to say, don't ask me how.
See, I'm having a different cut on the same thing. What I'm saying is, it is about leadership that we have to strive for. And Indian IT industry is having leadership certainly in services on offshore basis today, but that arena will grow into so many other things. We will be number one as a country. One or two or three companies from India will be major provider of banking software, which is already happening. In insurance, it will happen. In manufacturing, it will happen. So what will happen is, whenever there is, you think of an IT, the leader countries in each of those segments and sub-segments will be an Indian company. Whether that Indian company means that it is incorporated in India, no, I am not taking that view. I am taking a view that it is a global company. It so happens that it started in India maybe, but it employs global people, but its genesis, its DNA, its value system may be an Indian, that we should be all proud of. But the point I am making is about leadership. We will dominate the segments after segments in whatever way you cut them, whether industry wise, technology wise, or whatever way you do it, and that itself would mean large revenue. So I have no reason to disagree. If we want large revenue, I do agree with it. But our first challenge is to see that the first benchmark will be our 300 billion that we are aiming at 2020, and I am sure that will happen. Once that happens, the next one is waiting, as my good friend Ramani says.
Well, we are leaders of today, and we will be the leaders of tomorrow. Would you agree with that broad sentiment, Mr. Mehta?
in a lighter vein, Foresters, one of the research company, they go to different countries in the world and talk about their own consulting and so on and so forth. And each country they were saying, okay, how do we compete with India? And everywhere they would respond by saying, as long as you don't have, you should build a Nasscom equivalent organization in your country. Then only you will be able to compete. And we all know it's not going to be easy to replicate Nasscom in other countries. So given that the competition would be far less, I would say not only India tomorrow, I would say that the digital India vision, that India would be transformed into a digital society, will definitely happen in 25 years. And will inject scientific mindset in the minds of the people, which I believe is one of the major...
Despite all the bandwidth constraints and everything, you don't think that will all come into the... We'll sort all that out.
See what, you know that...
Just like the US solved the oil problem, I think India will solve all such issues. We have the talent, there's no question about it.
You know that Hindi story, Hindi movie story, Mere Saath Maa Hai, that's what he's saying. We have a Nasscom. Apart from the industry, हमारे साथ Nasscom भी है. So we will do very well because that is our competitive advantage too.
But on a serious note, I think we, as part of this program, we must all be grateful to people who founded Nasscom.
Absolutely.
They nurtured it with tremendous sacrifice in the early years. They have created an industry where by and large leaders are very ethical, an industry that has distinguished itself as the only industry from India where there is respect for it in a very advanced technology area, an industry which has demonstrated that they are second to none in corporate governance, an industry that has created tremendous incentive for entrepreneurs. So therefore, I think on this day, let us show our appreciation for all these 4 people, and of course Nandan, he is not here, he was busy with something else. So I personally would say I am very grateful to these 4 plus Nandan, and I should thank you for this opportunity of making sure that this discussion was made possible. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Murthy, I'll let you have the last word on that, but you've summed it up beautifully, really. I think it's been an incredible journey over the last 25 years for Nasscom, and all of you were pioneers in making this day possible, and the fact that all of you sound extremely optimistic about the road ahead. You may not be actively managing the affairs of Nasscom today. You set the ball rolling, and others are taking the agenda forward, but the fact that you're so optimistic about the future of the industry, that is indeed very reassuring for all of you as who I'm sure must be watching this telecast.
But this time I'm going to have a last word. He has been an inspiration to all of us in the industry. He has been very kind and humble to give credit to everybody else than himself, but we all learn from all the successes and all the good qualities that he had.
Without a doubt, he is the chief mentor of the IT industry.
Past 2 o'clock, it is past the hour, so it will be dropped. Don't worry.
This time he will not have a last word. I will have
What we will say is that he is personally a role model, and the organization he built is also a role model for the industry. So
Absolutely.
I think both counts, I think it's credit to Mr. Murthy.
On that note, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sparing the time and joining us for this special
Appreciate the time you've given us.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.